morning, everybody. Today is Friday, October 28th, and this is the Committee on Streets and Services. I understand that state law currently requires that the following announcement be made at the beginning of every remote public hearing as follows. Due to the current public health emergency, City Council committees are currently meeting remotely. We are using Microsoft Teams to make these remote hearings possible. Instructions for how the public may view and offer public testimony at public hearings of council committees are included in public notices that are published in the Daily News, Enquirer, and Legal Intelligencer prior to the hearings and can also be found on phlcouncil.com. I note that the hour has come. Mr. Maynard, will you please call roll to take attendance? Members that are in attendance, will you please indicate that you are present when your name is called? Also say a few brief words when responding so that your image will be displayed on the screen. Mr. Maynard.
Vice Chair Squilla.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and colleagues. Present.
Thank you, Ms. and Councilmember Squilla. Councilmember Bass.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and colleagues. I am present.
Thank you, Councilmember Bass. Councilmember O.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, colleagues. I'm present.
Thank you, Councilmember O. Councilmember Brooks.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and colleagues. I am present.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Johnson. Councilmember Gilmore Richardson.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, colleagues. I am present, and kudos and congratulations to you, your wife, and your whole family.
Thank you, colleague. We appreciate you so much.
And finally, Chair Thomas.
I am present. Thank you, Mr. Maynard. A quorum of the committee is present, and this hearing is now called to order. This is a public hearing on the Committee of Streets and Services regarding bills number 210745, 210928, 220383, 220454, 220576, 220579, 220580, 220637, 220663, 220735, 220737, 220738, 220739, 220740, 220741, 220771, 220772, 220773, 220774, 220777, 220778, 220811, 220812, 220814, 220829, 220830, 220831, and 220832. Mr. Maynard, will you please read the titles of the bills?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Bill 210745, an ordinance establishing parking regulations in the vicinity of South 13th Street and Oregon Avenue. Bill 210928, an ordinance amending Chapter 12, 2900 of the Philadelphia Code, contractor parking, to revise the requirements and limitations related to contractor parking permits, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill 220383, an ordinance establishing parking regulations in the vicinity of South 17th Street and Carpenter Street, South 24th Street and Christian Street, League Street and South 23rd Street, Carpenter Street to South 18th Street, Nowdane Street to South 21st Street, Kimball Street to South 24th Street, Webster Street to South 16th Street, Montrose Street to South 18th Street. Bill 220454, an ordinance authorizing the vacating of Crewstown Road from Norwalk Road to its terminus southwesterly therefrom, under certain terms and conditions. Bill 220576, an ordinance authorizing Howard Foreman, owner, to install, own, and maintain various encroachments, including but not limited to a proposed fence and other structures at 1338-44 Rising Sun Avenue, Philadelphia, PA 19140, and other locations abutting the Caribbean Feast restaurant, the property, under certain terms and conditions. And Bill 220579, an ordinance establishing a no truck parking regulation on both sides of Woodbine Avenue between 76th Street and 77th Street. Bill 220580, an ordinance establishing a no truck parking regulation on both sides of Columbia Avenue between 59th Street and 60th Street. Bill 220637, an ordinance establishing a no truck parking regulation on Morrill Avenue. Bill 220663, an ordinance establishing a no truck parking regulation near various locations, including rec centers, libraries, parks, and schools in the 4th Council District, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill 220735, an ordinance authorizing the revision of lines and grades on a portion of City Plan Number 120 by striking from the city plan and vacating Sharswood Street and Harlan Street, each from 22nd Street to 23rd Street, and reserving and placing on the city plan rights of way for sewer and drainage purposes and gas main purposes, such as may be necessary within the lines of the said streets being stricken, and authorizing acceptance of the grant to the city of the said rights of way, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill 220737, an ordinance establishing parking regulations in the vicinity of South 17th Street and Dickinson Street, Ellsworth Street and South 20th Street, Federal Street and South 15th Street, Federal Street and South 20th Street, Federal Street and South 21st Street, Federal Street and South 22nd Street, Federal Street and South 23rd Street, and Alter Street. Bill 220738, an ordinance establishing parking regulations in the vicinity of Fitzwater Street and South 18th Street, Cater Street and South 19th Street, Taney Street and South Street, South 17th Street and Fitzwater Street, Cleveland Street, and Carpenter Street. Bill 220739, an ordinance establishing parking regulations in the vicinity of Titan Street and South 19th Street, Oakford Street and South 21st Street, Wharton Street and Point Breeze Avenues, South 15th Street and Wharton Street, Reed Street and South 18th Street to South 22nd Street and South 17th Street and Reed Street. Bill 220740, an ordinance establishing parking regulations in the vicinity of Webster Street and Broad Street, South 11th Street and Bainbridge Street, Kimball Street, and South 11th Street. Bill 220741, an ordinance authorizing the plotting upon City Plan Number 388 of a right-of-way for various public utility purposes in the vicinity of the intersection of West Crown Avenue and Morrill Avenue under certain terms and conditions. Bill 220771, an ordinance authorizing the striking from City Plan Number 45-S and abandonment of a certain right-of-way reserved for water main and gas main purposes, extending from 17th Street to 18th Street, north of Hartranft Street, under certain terms and conditions. Bill 220772, an ordinance authorizing the revision of lines and grades on a portion of City Plan Number 308 by striking from the city plan and vacating Nowdane Street from 15th Street to its terminus eastwardly therefrom, and striking from the city plan and abandoning a right-of-way for drainage, water main, and gas main purposes, which extends eastwardly from the said terminus of Nowdane Street under certain terms and conditions. Bill 220773, an ordinance establishing a no truck parking regulation on both sides of North 75th Street between Brookhaven Road and Brentwood Road. Bill 220774, an ordinance regulating the direction of movement of traffic on Gorgas Lane between Ridge Avenue and Lawton Street, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill 220777, an ordinance establishing a no truck parking regulation on Pine Road from Bloomfield Avenue to Shady Lane. Bill 220778, an ordinance establishing a no truck parking regulation on Philmont Avenue from Byberry Road to Bustleton Avenue. Bill 220811, an ordinance authorizing the owner of 3542 Calumet Street, Philadelphia, PA 19129, to install, own, and maintain various encroachments at such property under certain terms and conditions. Bill 220812, an ordinance establishing a no truck parking regulation on both sides of Marlin Road between Jefferson Street and Lebanon Avenue. Bill 220814, an ordinance amending Section 12-919 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled On-Street Parking of Boats, Motorhomes, Truck Campers, Semi-Trailers, Tractor-Trailers, and Vending Carts, to provide prohibition on semi-trailer and tractor parking in the 10th District of Council, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill 220829, an ordinance establishing parking regulations in the vicinity of Columbia Avenue and Frankfurt Avenue, Belgrade Street and Susquehanna Avenue, Belgrade Street and Palmer Street, Howard Street and Thompson Street, Howard Street and Girard Avenue, Oxford Street and Frankfurt Avenue, Moyer Street and Palmer Street, Thompson Street and North 3rd Street. Bill 220830, an ordinance establishing parking regulations in the vicinity of North 2nd Street and Master Street, North 2nd Street and Thompson Street, Palethorpe Street and Girard Avenue, Masher Street and Girard Avenue, Air Street and Belgrade Street, Palmer Street and Thompson Street, Hancock Street and Girard Avenue, Warren Street and Girard Avenue. Bill 220831, an ordinance establishing parking regulations in the vicinity of Page Street and North 18th Street, Monument Street and North 17th Street, Diamond Street and North 17th Street, North 16th Street and Cecil B. Moore Avenue, Bouvier Street and Cecil B. Moore Avenue, Bouvier Street and Montgomery Avenue, North 18th Street and Cecil B. Moore Avenue. And finally, Bill 220832, an ordinance authorizing the installation of all-way stop signs at the intersection of Larkspur Street and Gifford Street. Mr. Chair, these are the bills listed for the committee today. Bills number 220576 and 220832 are being held at their respective sponsors' requests, and the committee won't hear testimony on those bills or vote on them today.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Before we begin to hear testimony from the witnesses we have for today, everyone who's been invited to the meeting to testify should be aware that this public hearing is being recorded. Because the hearing is public, participants and viewers have no reasonable expectation of privacy. By continuing to be in the meeting, you are consenting to being recorded. Additionally, prior to recognizing members for the questions or comments they have for the witnesses, I will note for the record at this time that we will use the chat feature available in Microsoft Teams to allow members to signify that they would like to be recognized. In order to comply with the Sunshine Act, the chat feature must only be used for that purpose. Mr. Maynard, will you please call the first bill or set of bills and witnesses we have to testify this morning?
Yes, Mr. Chair. The first bill we'll hear on is Bill 210928. We'll hear from Chris Pahalski from Otis and then Corinne O'Connor from PPA.
Good morning. If you are connected and ready to proceed, please state your name for the record and you may begin with your testimony.
Good morning, Chairperson Thomas and members of the Streets and Services Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today. My name is Christopher Pahalski. I am the Director of Policy and Strategic Initiatives at the Office of Transportation, Infrastructure, and Sustainability, known as Otis. I'm here today to offer testimony on Bill 210928. I would like to thank sponsor Council President Clark and co-sponsor Councilmember Squilla. Curbside space is a limited resource in Philadelphia and it has many uses: parking, travel lanes, food delivery to residents, Uber and Lyft, other passenger drop-off, delivery of goods to stores, EV charging, taxi stands, bike share, contractor parking, and many others. The existing contractor parking provisions in 12-2900 create a special use permit that recognizes the need for job site access for the construction industry. However, there are trade-offs with this use that needs to be managed. Insufficient curb space for loading leads to double parking, which in turn slows traffic and transit and may create dangerous situation. This bill preserves the contractor parking program while also putting in place changes to free up more curb space. The bill places a bank of hours, increases the permit cost, and indexes the permit cost going forward. But it also phases changes in over a number of years and contains a commitment to retain parking spaces for contractors, giving the construction industry the certainty they need when bidding on projects. This nuanced and balanced approach was the result of a strong collaboration with GBCA. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today. I will be happy to answer any questions you have at this time.
Thank you for your testimony. We'll hold off questions until this panel is complete. Will our next witness please state your name for the record and you may begin with your testimony.
Corinne O'Connor, Deputy Executive Director of the Philadelphia Parking Authority. I'm here to testify on Bill number 210928, amending Chapter 12-2900 of the Philadelphia Code to revise the requirements and limitations related to contractor parking permits, all under certain terms and conditions. Good morning, Chairperson Thomas and members of the Streets and Services Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today. As I said earlier, my name is Corinne O'Connor. I'm the Deputy Executive Director of the Philadelphia Parking Authority, and I'm here to offer testimony. I'd like to thank the sponsors of this, Council President Clark and co-sponsor Councilmember Squilla. The authority has taken part in as many discussions with Otis and the General Building Contractors Association to come to the best solution for the authority's contractor plaque work program. As the city rebounds from COVID and businesses return to our new normal, the demand for the curb space has become greater. The authority believes by promoting turnover at the curb, congestion will reduce, granting more access to the curb for our driving public. The bill will promote the public's ability to be able to do business in the city of Philadelphia. We acknowledge there is a need for many construction and emergency contractors to have easy access to their vehicles for tools and equipment, but there should be a limit to this access. The authority is therefore in support of Bill number 210928 and look forward to working with our partners to make this program a great success. If anybody has any questions, I will be happy to answer.
Thank you both for your testimony. Are there any questions from the members of this committee for this panel, for this set of witnesses? Before we move on, I just want to ask myself, what type of outreach took place as it relates to communicating with stakeholders, neighbors, and other folks who would be concerned about legislation like this prior to the bill being introduced?
Yeah, we work extensively with the Building Contractors Association, who is the primary representative for people getting contractor parking permits. We have also talked about this with SEPTA, as it does the double parking that can be created when there's no curb space interferes with their bus operations. While not specific, we do hear often from residents about the lack of parking or the lack of places to do legal drop-off and loading.
Thank you. Any other questions from any other members of the committee for this particular panel? Hearing none, I want to thank you for your testimony today. It's greatly appreciated.
Thank you,
Mr. Mayor,
Chairperson.
thank you. Thank you for all you do.
You're
Mr.
welcome.
Mayor, will you please call the next bill and the next set of witnesses to testify?
Sure. The next set of bills we'll hear are bills 220454, 220735, 220741, 220771, and 220772. We'll hear from Noel Marconi from Streets and Sarah Chu from Planning on each of these bills.
Good morning. Please state your name for the record and you may begin with your testimony.
Good morning, Chairperson Thomas and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Noel Marconi, and I am the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Department of Streets. I'm here today to testify on Bill number 220454, introduced by Councilmember O'Neill. This is not an administration ordinance, but an ordinance requested by Stephen G. Pollock, Esquire of Horn Williamson, LLC, representing Norwalk Gardens, LP. The purpose of this proposed ordinance is to authorize the vacating of Cruztown Road from Norwalk Road to its terminus, approximately 402 feet southwesterly therefrom. This portion of Cruztown Road was open for public use in 1821, but was not plotted on the city plan. This road has not been used by for many years, and the Department of Streets is not desirous of maintaining this street at this location. This action has been requested by adjacent property owners in order to remove Cruztown Road as an encumbrance on their lands and facilitate future development. The Department of Streets has no objections to this proposed ordinance and recommends it to the committee for favorable action. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today, and I would be pleased to answer any questions you may have. Steve, do you want me to go through all of them first and then Sarah, or?
Yeah, let's do that for expediency.
Okay. Good morning, Chairperson Thomas and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Noel Marconi, and I am the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Department of Streets. I'm here today to testify on Bill number 220735, introduced by Council President Clark. This is not an administration ordinance, but an ordinance requested by Andrew Davenport, Vice President of the Michaels Organization, representing Sharswood Associates, LP. The purpose of this proposed ordinance is to authorize the striking from the city plan of Sharswood Street and Harlan Street, each from 22nd Street to 23rd Street, and the reserving and placing on the city plan's right-of-way for sewer and drainage purposes and gas main purposes within the lines of the streets being stricken if such rights-of-way are determined to be necessary. The streets were previously proposed to be stricken in 1999 when the adjacent property known as Sharswood 1 were being redeveloped. However, the legal documents required for this were never filed and the striking was not completed. The Sharswood 1 site is an affordable housing development consisting of 71 residential units. The property owners now desire to restart and complete the street striking in order to facilitate future renovations of the site and additional construction in the surrounding area. The Department of Streets has no objections to the proposed ordinance and recommends it to your committee for favorable action. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today. I'd be pleased to answer any questions you may have. Good morning, Chairperson Thomas and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Noelle Marconi, and I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Department of Streets. I'm here today to testify on Bill number 220741, introduced by Councilmember O'Neill. This is not an administration ordinance, but an ordinance requested by Jared Klein, ESQ of Blank Rome LLP, representing the Union Lake Golf Club at Torresdale, Frankfurt, LLC. The purpose of this proposed ordinance is to authorize the plotting on the city plan of a right-of-way for various utility purposes in the area lying south of West Crown Avenue and west of Morrell Avenue within the lines of the former Fordham Road and in abutting the city-owned Thomas Mitchell Playground Recreation Facility. The proposed right-of-way will extend to the property of the Union Lake Golf Club and will allow for the extension of public utility lines to provide service to improvements for the proposal for the golf club property. The golf club is also seeking to establish an easement through this area to provide access for maintenance vehicles serving the golf course facilities. This matter will be handled separately from the city plan process. The Department of Streets has no objections to this proposed ordinance and recommends it to your committee for favorable action. I thank you for the opportunity to testify before you today and be pleased to answer any questions you may have. Good morning, Chairperson Thomas and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Noelle Marconi, and I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Department of Streets. I'm here today to testify on Bill number 220771, introduced by Councilmember Jones on behalf of Councilmember Johnson. This is not an administration ordinance, but an ordinance requested by Dorothy Ann Hamill, ASQ of Sirlin, Lesser, and Benson, PC, representing Salvatore Barbizzi. The purpose of this proposed ordinance is to authorize the striking from the city plan and abandoning of a right-of-way reserved for water main and gas main purposes within the lines of the portion of the former Geary Street extending from 17th Street to 18th Street, north of Hartranft Street. The existing water main at this location has been abandoned and existing gas main will be relocated. The purpose of this action is to remove this no longer needed utility right-of-way as an encumbrance on the party's interest of the party and interest property and facilitate redevelopment. The Department of Streets has no objections to this proposed ordinance and recommends it to your committee for favorable action. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today. Be pleased to answer any questions you may have. Good morning, Chairperson Thomas and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Noelle Marconi, and I am the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Department of Streets. I'm here today to offer testimony on Bill number 220772, introduced by Councilmember Jones on behalf of Councilmember Johnson. This is not an administration ordinance, but an ordinance requested by Kevin Smith of Stantec Consulting Services Incorporated on behalf of Naudine South Associates, LLC. The purpose of this proposed ordinance is to authorize the striking from the city plan and vacating of Naudine Street from 15th Street to its terminus eastwardly therefrom, and the striking from the city plan and abandoning of a right-of-way for drainage, water main, and gas main purposes, which extends from the said terminus of Naudine Street, east of 15th Street, to a terminus further eastwardly therefrom. This section of Naudine Street is a dead-end street and as such experiences minimal public traffic. Existing utility facilities in the street and the right-of-way will be removed and are relocated. The purpose of this action is to clear land area and consolidate parcels to facilitate opportunities for redevelopment of the adjacent property, which currently serves as a surface parking lot. The Department of Streets has no objections to this proposed ordinance and recommends it to your committee for favorable action. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today and be pleased to answer any questions you may have.
Thanks for your testimony, Ms. Marconi. We'll now turn to Sarah Chu from Planning, who will testify on the same set of bills in the same order.
Good morning, Chair Member Thomas and members of Committee on Streets and Services. I'm Sarah Chu, City Planner with the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I'm here to testify on Bill number 220454, which was introduced by Councilmember O'Neill on May 19th, 2022. Bill number 220454 will remove a portion of Cruztown Road as an encumbrance on the adjacent owner's property and facilitate possible development. This section of the road was open for public use in 1821, but it was not plotted on city plan. It is not physically improved as a street, nor open for public vehicular or foot traffic. The Planning Commission at its meeting on June 9, 2022, recommended Bill number 220454 for approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time. Good morning, Chair Member Thomas and members of the Committee on Streets and Services. I'm Sarah Chu, City Planner with the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I'm here to testify on Bill number 220735, which was introduced by Councilmember Jones for Council President Clark on September 22nd, 2022. Bill number 220735 will authorize striking and vacating Sharswood Street and Harlan Street from city plan, each from 22nd Street to 23rd Street, and reserving and placing rights of ways for sewer and drainage purposes and gas main purposes. The City Planning Commission had recommended approval for Bill number 990306 in May 1999 to strike and vacate Sharswood and Harlan Street at the same location. That action was for Sharswood 1 development with 71 affordable units. While the development was completed, the final releases of the streets was not filed with the city. Hence, the streets has remained on the record. The current action will clean up the legal encumbrance on the property's title and will enable the developer, Michael's organization, to renovate the existing units and construct new affordable rental homes in this area. Therefore, the City Planning Commission at its meeting on October 20th, 2022, recommended Bill number 220735 for approval as item in accordance with the previous policy. I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time. Good morning, Chair Member Thomas, and yes.
You may continue. I apologize.
All right. Good morning, Chair Member Thomas and members of Committee on Streets and Services. I'm Sarah Chu, City Planner with the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I'm here to testify on Bill number 220775, which was introduced by Councilmember Driscoll on September 22nd, 2022. Bill number 220775 will authorize a strike. Yeah.
Can I pause you?
Yes, this is.
Yeah, that's not what we should be talking about for this one.
Right. Sorry. Apologize for it. This is for another one that Commission approved, but is not listed for hearing yet.
That's
Sorry.
correct. Yes. I have 741, 771, and 772.
Yes, I have those. Okay, 741. Good morning, Chair Member Thomas and members of Committee on Streets and Services. I'm Sarah Chu, City Planner with the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I'm here to testify on Bill number 220741, which was introduced by Councilmember O'Neill on September 22nd, 2022. Bill number 220741 will authorize plotting on city plan a right-of-way for various public utility purposes in the vicinity of West Crown Avenue and Morale Avenue. This action is to facilitate Union League Golf Club's proposal for a new line-hole golf course and a training facility at the area behind Michelle Playground and John Hancock Elementary School property. In addition to the public utility right-of-way, a 44 feet wide maintenance easement area is being proposed at the former street bed of Fordham Road. in order to connect West Crown Avenue to the golf course property. This easement will allow access for construction of golf course and training facility. It is for the groundkeepers to use. It is not for public access. The City Planning Commission at its meeting of October 20th, 2022 recommended a bill number 220741 for approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time.
You can proceed, Sarah.
Good morning, Chair Member Thomas and members of Committee on Streets and Services. I'm Sarah Chu, City Planner with the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I'm here to testify on bill number 220771, which was introduced by Councilmember Jones for Councilmember Johnson on September 29, 2022. Bill number 220771 will authorize striking and abandoning of a former Geary Street right-of-way between 17th and 18th Street. The City Planning Commission had recommended approval for Streets Bill number 886 on March 21st, 1961, to strike and vacate Geary Street from Broad Street to a point 950 feet westwardly, and to reserve a 25 feet right-of-way for water and gas main purposes. The Philadelphia Water Department has already abandoned the water main with the right-of-way and advised the budding owner to have the right-of-way removed from the city plan. Philadelphia Gas Station has no objection to abandon the gas main in the right-of-way, and the work would be at the expense of the applicant. Therefore, the Planning Commission at its meeting of October 20th, 2022 recommended bill number 220771 for approval as item in accord with previous policy. I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time. Good morning, Chair Member Thomas and members of Committee on Streets and Services. I'm Sarah Chu, City Planner with the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I'm here to testify on bill number 220772, which was introduced by Councilmember Jones for Councilmember Johnson on September 29th, 2022. Bill number 220775 will authorize striking and vacating a 76 feet portion and abandon a 124-foot portion of Naldine Street, which was previously stricken but reserved as a utility right-of-way. This action only affects one property owner and will help facilitate multi-phase development of the former City Health Center on the block bounded by South Broad Street, South Street, 15th Street, and Lombard Street. The Planning Commission at its meeting of October 20th, 2022 recommended bill number 220772 for approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chu, for your testimony.
Thank you for your testimony to both of the witnesses. Are there any questions from members of this committee for either witness or either bills? On any of the bills? Hearing none, I want to say thank you for your testimony. It's greatly appreciated. Mr. Maynard, will you please call the next panel and next set of bills?
Of course, Mr. Chair. So the next set of bills we'll hear on are bills 220579, 220580, 220637, 220663, 220773, 220774, 220777, 220778, 220811, 220812, and finally Bill 220814. Noel Marconi from the Streets Department is our sole witness on each of the bills. Noel, when you're ready.
Yeah, please state your name.
Good morning, Chairperson Thomas and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Noel Marconi, and I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Department of Streets. I'm here today to offer testimony on Bill number 220579, introduced by Councilmember Jones. This ordinance establishes a new truck parking regulation on both sides of Woodbine Avenue between 76th Street and 77th Street. The Department of Streets has no objections to this bill. This regulation can be posted within 30 days of the passage of this bill. This concludes my testimony, and pleased to answer any questions you may have. Good morning, Chairperson Thomas and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Noelle Marconi, and I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Department of Streets. I'm here today to offer testimony on Bill Number 220580, introduced by Councilmember Jones. This ordinance establishes a no truck parking regulation on both sides of Columbia Avenue between 59th Street and 60th Street. Department of Streets has no objections to this bill. This regulation can be posted within 30 days of the bill's passage. This concludes my testimony, and please answer any questions you may have. Good morning, Chairperson Thomas and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Noelle Marconi, and I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Department of Streets. I'm here to offer testimony on Bill Number 220637, introduced by Councilmember O'Neill. This ordinance establishes a no truck parking anytime regulation on the 3500 block of Morrell Avenue. The Department of Streets has no objections to this bill. The regulation can be posted within 30 days of the passage of the bill. This concludes my testimony, and please answer any questions you may have. Good morning, Chairperson Thomas and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Noelle Marconi, and I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Department of Streets. I'm here today to offer testimony on Bill Number 220663, introduced by Councilmember Jones. This ordinance establishes a no truck parking restrictions near various locations, including recreation centers, libraries, parks, and schools in the 4th Council District. This bill will allow the department to post parking signage at these various locations through the regulatory process. The Department of Streets has no objections to this bill. This concludes my testimony. Please answer any questions you may have. Good morning, Chairperson Thomas and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Noelle Marconi, and I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Department of Streets. I'm here today to offer testimony on Bill Number 220773, introduced by Councilmember Jones. This ordinance establishes a no truck parking regulation on both sides of North 75th Street between Brookhaven Road and Brentwood Road. Department of Streets has no objections to this bill. The regulations can be posted within 30 days of the bill's passage. This concludes my testimony, and please answer any questions you may have. Good morning, Chairperson Thomas and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Noelle Marconi, and I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Department of Streets. I'm here today to offer testimony on Bill Number 220774, introduced by Councilmember Jones. This ordinance regulates the direction of movement of traffic on Gorgas Lane. A one-way regulation will be established on Gorgas Lane between Bridge Avenue and Lawton Street. The Department of Streets has no objections to this bill, and the regulations can be posted within 30 days of the bill's passage. This concludes my testimony, and please answer any questions you may have. Good morning, Chairperson Thomas and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Noelle Marconi, and I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Department of Streets. I'm here today to offer testimony on Bill Number 220777, introduced by Councilmember O'Neill. This ordinance establishes a no truck parking 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. regulation on Pine Road from Bloomfield Avenue to Shady Lane. Department of Streets has no objections to this bill. The regulation was placed on August 11th, 2022 as a trial. Since that time, we have not received any concerns or complaints from citizens. This concludes my testimony. Please answer any questions you may have. Good morning, Chairperson Thomas and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Noelle Marconi, and I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Department of Streets. I'm here today to offer testimony on Bill Number 220778, introduced by Councilmember O'Neill. This ordinance establishes a no truck parking anytime regulation on Philmont Avenue from Byberry Road to Bustleton Avenue. The Department of Streets has no objections to this bill. The regulation can be posted within 30 days of the bill's passage. This concludes my testimony, and please answer any questions you may have. Good morning, Chairperson Thomas and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Noelle Marconi, and I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Department of Streets. I'm here today to offer testimony on Bill Number 220811, introduced by Councilmember Jones. This ordinance authorizes Peter DeStefano and Katrina Minkakis, or a subsequent owner, to own and maintain an encroachment at 3542 Calumet Street. This encroachment allows for 2 planters at the property. The Department of Streets has no objections to this bill, as 6-foot passable sidewalk spaces to remain after the installation. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today. I'd be pleased to answer any questions you may have. Good morning, Chairperson Thomas and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Noelle Marconi, and I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Department of Streets. I'm here today to offer testimony on Bill number 220812, introduced by Councilmember Jones. This ordinance establishes a no truck parking regulation on both sides of Marlin Road between Jefferson Street and Lebanon Avenue. Department of Streets has no objections to this bill. The regulation can be posted within 30 days of the bill's passage. This concludes my testimony, and pleased to answer any questions you may have. Good morning, Chairperson Thomas and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Noelle Marconi, and I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Department of Streets. I'm here today to offer testimony on Bill number 220814, introduced by Councilmember O'Neill. This ordinance amends Section 12-919 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled On-Street Parking of Boats, Motorhomes, Truck Campers, Semi-Trailers, Truck Tractors, and Vending Carts, to provide prohibitions on semi-trailer and truck tractor parking in the 10th Council District. This bill establishes that no person shall park a semi-trailer or truck tractor on any public street in the 10th District that is determined by regulation by the Department of Streets to be a location with respect to which the safe and efficient use of the right-of-way by pedestrians or traffic would be impaired by such parking. The Department of Streets has no objections to this bill. This concludes my testimony, and pleased to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions the members of this committee for this particular witness on these set of bills? Hearing none, I want to thank you for your testimony. Mr. Maynard, will you please call the next panel and the next set of bills?
Of course, Mr. Chair. The next set of bills are bills 210745, 220383, 220737, 220738, 220739, 220740, 220829, 220830, and 220831. The sole witness offering a combined testimony on all of the bills just mentioned is Dion Bracely from the Philadelphia Parking Authority.
Good
Thank you.
morning, Council.
Yeah. Please state your name for the record, and you may begin with your testimony.
Yes. Good morning, Council. My name is Dion Bracely, Deputy Manager at the Philadelphia Parking Authority. Thank you for allowing me to testify before Council regarding bill numbers 210745, 220383, 220737, 220738, 220739, 220740, 220829, 220830, and 220831, establishing parking regulations. The Philadelphia Parking Authority has no objection to the ordinances previously read before Council and recommends favorable consideration. Thank you again for your time. I will be happy to respond to questions at this time.
Are there any questions from members of the committee for this particular witness? Hearing none, I want to thank you for your testimony. Mr. Maynard, do we want the witness to go consecutively, or is it just one bill?
That was she testified on all of the bills mentioned. She was the only witness. There is one person for public comment. Council support, were you ever able to reach Ella Mae Bruce?
Unfortunately, we couldn't contact participants.
Okay. As a reminder for everyone, if you want to testify before a committee in council, that's different than the stated meeting on Thursday. You call or email the clerk listed on the notices and advertisements by 3 p.m. the day before, and you will be listed for public testimony. Mr. Chair, with that said, bills 220832 and 220576 are being held at their respective sponsors' request. And that concludes testimony from on the bills and witnesses today.
Thank you, Mr. Maynard. I just want to open the floor up for any members of the committee who might be present today that might have a question for any of the panelists or any of the bills that was discussed. There being no further questions from members of the committee and no other witnesses to testify, I will ask that if there is anyone else present in this hearing whose name we have failed to call, and that wishes to offer testimony on any of the bills being considered today. Hearing none, I want to thank all of the panels and witnesses for their participation today. We value your opinions, and now I invite all panels and witnesses to please disconnect from the meeting before we go into our public meeting. We will pause the proceedings briefly as multiple participants leave the hearing. This concludes the public hearing of the committee, and we will now go into the public meeting to consider the action to be taken on the bills before the committee today. Mr. Maynard, again, will you please call the roll to take attendance? Members that are in attendance, will you please indicate that you are present when your name is called? Also, please say a few brief words when responding so that your image will be displayed on the screen. Mr. Maynard, you good to go, Mr. Maynard? You're on mute.
Oh, well, not my day.
No, it happens all the time.
Vice Chair Squilla.
Good morning, everyone. Present?
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Bass.
Good morning. I am still present.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember O.
Good morning. I'm still present as well.
Excellent. Councilmember Brooks.
I'm present.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Johnson. Councilmember Gilmore Richardson.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, colleagues. I am present.
And finally, Chairman Thomas.
I'm still here.
Excellent.
Mr. Maynard. And of course, we have a quorum again. The chair recognizes Councilmember Squilla for a motion to approve amendments to the bills being considered today.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I offer an amendment to bill number 210928. A copy of the amendment has been circulated to all members of the committee. I move for that amendment to be approved.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and properly second that the amendment to the bills that Councilmember Squilla just referred to be approved. All those in favor will signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? The ayes have it and the motion carries and the amendment has been approved. The chair again recognizes Councilmember Squilla for a single motion on the bills that are being considered today.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I remind the committee that bills number 220576 and 220832 are being held at the respective sponsor's request and are not being voted on or moved today. Mr. Chair, I move the bills numbers 210745, 210928, 220383, 220454, 220579, 220580, 220637, 220663, 220735, 220737, 220738, 220739, 220740, 220741, 220771, 220772, 220773, 220774, 220777, 220778, 220811, 220812, 220814, 220829, 220830, and 220831, including any amendments that have been approved. Be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended as submit the first reading of these bills as the next session of council.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second that the bills just read by Councilmember Squilla, including amendments that have been approved today, be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of these bills at the next session of council. All those in favor of the signal motion will signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed?
Aye.
The ayes have it and the motion carries. Again, bills number 220576 and 220832 were not considered during the public meeting as they were held by their respective members. This concludes the business before the Committee of Streets and Services today. I want to thank all the members of the committee, as well as the panels, as well as the tech team and the clerk and everybody for making this happen today. Thank you all very much, and please enjoy your weekend.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Go Phils.
Yes, go Phils. We should have said that at the top end. Go Phils. Thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend.